Welcome to California Today. I'm David Zhang. Here is a preview of some of today's top stories. The second GOP presidential debate is set to take place in Southern California. We have more on the location and another big announcement. State lawmakers are busy at the state capitol. A newly proposed bill is seeking to require bidirectional charging for all future electric vehicles. And on the federal level, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is requesting funding to be fast-tracked for a bullet train line that would connect Los Angeles to Las Vegas. Good evening. Up first, the Republican National Committee announced that the second GOP presidential debate will be held in Simi Valley, California. This will be the fifth time a presidential debate has been held at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library.
Republican National Committee, or RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel, announced last week that the second GOP presidential debate will be held at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in Southern California. McDaniel adds that she firmly believes that the next president will be speaking on that stage, but did not reveal who would broadcast the debate. She says, quote, "The next election is so important. We're not dealing with small, minor differences between two parties. These aren't simple policy discussions that we're discussing. We're electing and determining the future of our country. That's what we're electing. There's two very different paths being laid out." The RNC previously announced that the first debate would be held in Milwaukee in August. Last week, McDaniel said that Fox News would host the first debate. President of the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute said this will be the fifth time a presidential debate has been held at the Ronald Reagan Library. Trump was one of 10 Republican candidates debating when the Reagan Library last hosted a GOP primary debate in 2015. Current Republican candidates for the 2024 presidential election include former ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, and conservative radio host Larry Elder.
And just today, President Joe Biden officially announced his bid for re-election and launched his 2024 presidential campaign. Now to the Democratic National Committee, who recently announced its decision to forego traditional primary debates. But Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he believes this should be a confirmation to the American public that the elections are rigged. Let's take a look.
Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says that the Democratic National Committee's, or DNC, decision to forego primary debates would serve as confirmation to the American voters that the nation's elections are, quote, rigged. Kennedy told the Epoch Times on Monday, quote, "Debates and town halls are part of the democratic process. We're living in a time when there's a lot of Americans who believe our democracy is broken. And if the DNC goes through with this, its plan to not have debate, I think that will serve as an unfortunate confirmation to a lot of Americans that the system is indeed rigged." Kennedy's comments came amid rumors that Biden may formally announce his 2024 presidential campaign this week. And according to a Washington Post report, the Democratic Party has, quote, "no plans to sponsor primary debates," even with multiple candidates vying for the party's nomination.
While declining to speculate on why the party would have made that decision, Kennedy stresses that he believes such a move could defy democracy itself. On to more local news. A California bill is proposing to require a new ability for electric vehicles, bidirectional charging. If passed, the new EVs would need to have this function by 2027.
Senate Bill 233, sponsored by Senator Nancy Skinner, would require all new EVs sold in California to have a bidirectional charging capability. This means the car's battery would be able to release power to charge other appliances. Skinner says if passed, EVs sold starting 2027 could help the power grid by using their battery pack as a power source for homes. The bill passed the Senate Energy Committee and is headed to the Senate Transportation Committee for a hearing on April 25th. This comes as Governor Gavin Newsom declared that California will phase out gas cars by 2035. But critics have said the power grid will not be able to handle the load of EVs, citing power outages last year. By mandating bidirectional charging, the bill aims to help prevent the outages. According to one report, an EV battery can power a home for about 3 days. So far, the Ford F-150 Lightning and Nissan Leaf have the ability to charge from vehicle to home or grid.
And in other government news, a bipartisan congressional group from Nevada and California made a request to the Biden administration yesterday. They're asking that funding be fast-tracked for a bullet train line. The tracks would go between Las Vegas and Los Angeles along Interstate 15. Traffic jams on the interstate can stretch for 15 miles near the Nevada-California line during weekend or holiday travel. The high-speed electric trains could potentially cut the 4-hour trip to Las Vegas in half. Brightline West is proposing to spend more than $10 billion to lay the tracks. The private company is seeking nearly $4 billion in funding from the Biden-backed federal infrastructure law. The lawmakers say the train could boost the economy and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. They expect it to create 35,000 construction jobs and around 1,000 permanent jobs. But not everyone is on board for the bullet train. Some farmers, ranchers, and other landowners object to the idea. Many don't want a train traveling across their land at 200 miles per hour, over 30 times every day. Staying in Southern California, one advocacy group in Newport Beach is raising awareness about the dangers of fentanyl. The group is collecting signatures from supporters and pushing for stricter penalties for drug dealers. FentanylSolution.org launched last week a $2.2 million pull-to-prop initiative to combat California's increasing fentanyl epidemic. The advocacy group, which is based out of Newport Beach, is dedicated to raising awareness, providing education, and mobilizing action to help combat the rising fentanyl crisis within the state. In a recent press release, Janice Celeste, president of the group, says, quote, "We believe that drug dealers who sell fentanyl and murder their customers must be held accountable for their actions. The Pull to Prop initiative is a crucial step in our efforts to raise awareness about the need for stricter penalties for these criminals." The organization has partnered with McNally Temple Associates, a Sacramento-based political consulting firm, to conduct the polling in the hope of drafting a 2024 statewide ballot initiative to address the issue. In Orange County alone, law enforcement officials say that fentanyl deaths have increased by over 1,000% within the last 5 years. The Orange County coroner reported 717 fentanyl-related deaths in the county during 2022, including children who unknowingly consumed it in fake prescription pills. To learn more about the Pull to Prop initiative and efforts to raise awareness about fentanyl dangers, please visit fentanylsolution.org. We'll take a short break now, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. Filming for the movie Rust has resumed, with the 2 new safety supervisors on the production team. This follows the tragic on-set shooting that took place over a year ago. More layoffs have been announced, this time in the entertainment and the banking industries. We'll take a look at which companies and their reasons for these workforce reductions. And Northern Lights made a rare appearance in California. This is thanks to a recent spike in solar activity. Those stories and more coming up on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, David Zhang. Filming has resumed on the set of Rust in Montana. The production's lawyer explains how things are going so far following the tragic on-set shooting incident.
According to Rust movie productions lawyer Melina Spadoni, Alec Baldwin is doing fine after New Mexico special prosecutors dropped charges against him.
So Alec is the consummate professional and always has been. We've never had a concern that he couldn't perform in his role as Harlan Rust, even during all of the drama that's happened in his personal life from the criminal prosecution. And I watched him on set, and it's amazing to see because he's very devoted and very good at what he does.
Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed after a gun Baldwin was carrying went off on the set in Santa Fe, New Mexico. The director, Joel Souza, was wounded in the incident. Filming resumed last week, 18 months after the fatal shooting in October 2021.
I think everyone was excited and optimistic. Our director, Joel Souza, gave a very inspirational speech indicating that this really was for Helena and this is what she would have wanted. And he said that everyone should do it with the joy that she brought to the set, and to the extent anyone needed to shed a tear, it should be a tear of joy.
Hutchins' cinematography will still be visible in the finished film of Rust.
Well, the first step is to maintain as much of her cinematography as possible. So part of our goal was always to preserve her original footage and then try to make it as seamless as possible. There were careful decisions made as to what cinematographer would be continuing her work. And Bianca Klein is fantastic and is honoring Helena's vision by maintaining her work.
Filming of Rust switched states from New Mexico to Montana, but Spadoni says this will not impact the production.
The script doesn't actually take place in either New Mexico and Montana. So in terms of the background, it doesn't really change much because the script isn't set in either place.
Since it's a new location, Spadoni says there are 2 new safety supervisors on set. Shooting in Montana will wrap up on May 22nd.
Speaking of the entertainment industry, Disney says it's laying off several thousand workers across the company this week in a cost-cutting move. The cuts affect its parks, entertainment division, and experiences and products division, as well as ESPN. This is the second of 3 waves of layoffs, for a total elimination of 7,000 jobs. That's about 3% of Disney's global workforce. Chief Executive Bob Iger says the goal is to save $5.5 billion in costs. He says shareholders should start receiving dividend payments in February after a pandemic suspension. And more on layoffs. San Francisco-based First Republic Bank expects to cut its workforce by up to 25% this quarter. The layoff announcement comes as the bank reported its total deposits fell 41% in the first quarter. That came even after a group of large banks stepped in with $30 billion to prevent the regional lender from failing. Without that cash infusion, deposits would have fallen by over 50%. The California-based bank said it saw a large drop in deposit activities after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank last month. Depositors pulled out more than $100 billion, fearing the bank would be next to fail. That activity began to stabilize at the end of March and has since remained steady. First Republic has seen its share price plummet nearly 90% since March 1st. The price to rent an apartment in Orange County is decreasing. Industry experts say they believe factors such as the increasing interest rate, declining population, high cost of living, and the weather can all impact the rental market.
Rental industry research firm CoStar Group says rental prices are dropping in Orange County. The average price to rent an apartment has declined 3% since August 2022, and demand is now the lowest it has been since a decade ago. While data indicate prices are down, some renters say they haven't noticed. Stacy Lee, a customer service representative working in Huntington Beach and living in Santa Ana, told the Epic Times, quote, "I wish I could live closer to work, but everything is expensive near the beach." There are approximately 11,500 Orange County apartment listings on Zillow as of April 5th, with an average price of $2,400 for a 1-bedroom apartment. The national median rent is currently about $1,200. According to market analysis, rental markets have been kept afloat by rising interest rates, as high median prices and increased borrowing costs have dampened real estate sales across the state. Some economists suggest the state's declining population and high cost of living affect the market. Net migration losses often lead to less competition for rental properties, thus driving the drop in prices. Local realtors believe that recent storms also impact short-term demand for rentals. With warmer temperatures approaching, vacancy rates are expected to decrease.
Meanwhile, on the state level, real estate markets are declining in sales by double-digit across California. But there's some areas that have seen an uptick since February, such as Orange County. Market analysts suggest that weather, rising interest rates, and economic outlook all impact buying patterns. According to the California Association of Realtors, or CAR, existing home sales statewide are down 33% annually. The volume and prices are dropping, and the unsold inventory index and median days on market are increasing. The worst regions in terms of sales include Napa Valley, San Bernardino, Santa Barbara, Siskiyou, Glen, Lassen, and Mono. But the Orange County-based Elixir Mortgage Lending said, quote, "The market is very complicated, and the news that everything is down is not entirely true." Tolley told the Epoch Times that inventories in Orange County are tight, adding that, quote, "there are less listings, more cancellations, and investors, foreign money, and first-time home buyers are driving demand for entry-level homes." Some analysts have suggested storm weather, rising interest rates, and the perception of a fragile economy all potentially impacting buying patterns. But with the arrival of warmer weather and the end of a school year, industry analysts say they're hoping for renewed demand. This last story will surely lighten up the mood. Colorful displays from the aurora borealis are typically associated with the North and South Poles. But some people in Northern California and other northern states along the Canadian border were recently treated to a rare Northern Lights sighting.
A colorful aurora was seen in Northern California over the weekend. The National Weather Service shared on Twitter photos from Californians who were lucky enough to catch a glimpse of the rare sight. According to EarthSky, the auroral displays were also seen in Utah, Colorado, Salt Lake City, and Arizona. Christopher Taylor, a professor of physics and astronomy at Sacramento State, explains, quote, "The aurora comes when particles from the sun are snared by the Earth's magnetic field and funneled toward the North Pole and the South Pole. That's why you see them mostly in the extreme north and extreme south. But the more particles the sun sends into space, the more likely you are to see an aurora at lower latitudes." NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center uses a rating system to forecast and track the strength of different geomagnetic solar storms. Aurora dashboard information, including forecasts and tips on viewing the aurora, can be found on NOAA's website.
Let's check in with NTD's Carlos Reyes on today's Sports Roundup. He's covering boxing, NBA, and soccer.
This is your California Today Sports Roundup, and I'm Carlos Reyes. Los Alamitos native Ryan Garcia took a strike, then dropped to one knee. The delayed effect of a stinging liver shot, a perfectly placed left hand from Gervonta Tank Davis that floored his foe for the second occasion in their super fight on Saturday. This time, Garcia didn't beat the count. Referee Thomas Taylor reached the count of 10 at 1 minute and 44 seconds into round 7, with Garcia still on one knee, struggling to catch his breath. Davis's victory came before nearly 21,000 people at the sold-out T-Mobile Arena. This serves as an anticlimactic but conclusive finish to boxing's most anticipated matchup in recent years. The fight was mostly tactical, with the better all-around boxer Davis baiting Garcia with feints as he looked to open him up. The punches were unleashed, with blinding velocity and thudding power in a matchup that featured two of the sport's most damaging finishers, who also have some of the quickest hands. Despite their stardom, only Davis is a former champion, a title he won at 130 pounds in 2017 with a 7-round TKO of Jose Pedraza. With that single left hand, Davis cemented himself as one of boxing's pound-for-pound best fighters, point blank period. If not one of the sport's singular best stars in an 136-pound catchweight bout that he dominated from start to finish. The King, LeBron James, made the tying layup with 0.8 seconds left in regulation before scoring 4 of his 22 points in overtime, and the Los Angeles Lakers surged to a 3-1 lead in their first round playoff series with an 117-111 victory over the Memphis Grizzlies on Monday night. James also grabbed a career playoff high 20 rebounds and added 7 assists and 2 block shots while committing just 1 turnover in his 270th playoff game, extending his own NBA record. He became the first Lakers player to put up 20 points and 20 rebounds in a playoff game since the one and only Shaquille O'Neal did it in 2004. At 38 years old and 115 days, James is also the oldest player ever with a 20-point, 20-rebound game, including regular season and the playoffs. The ever-controversial Dylan Brooks, who dismissed James as old after Game 2, had only 11 points for Memphis after getting ejected from Game 3 for striking James in the groin. Austin Reeves scored 23 points, and Davis had 5 of his 12 in overtime for the 7th-seeded Lakers, who have won 2 straight home games to move to the brink of their first playoff series victory outside the Florida bubble since 2012. Los Angeles surged back from a 7-point deficit with 5 minutes left in regulation with a rally that abruptly began when D'Angelo Russell hit 3 consecutive three-pointers, and the Lakers never trailed in overtime. The San Jose Earthquakes fell to Real Salt Lake 3-1 on Saturday night at America First Field in Sandy, Utah. Forward Cristian Espinosa scored his 6th goal of the season, now tied with Eric Wijnaldum for 9th most goals in club history with 21 to his name. Head coach Luchi Gonzalez had this to say about the team's performance.
You know, we fell short. So, you know, I think the positive is we can compete against anybody, anywhere, any day. But to win these kind of games away in a venue like Salt Lake, we have to execute and kill in our chances, and we did not. So, you know, let's work. Let's keep getting better. Our foundation is very good, and we know we can do that against anybody, but it didn't happen tonight. And congrats to Salt Lake.
Real Salt Lake opened the scoring towards the end of the first half through Jasper Lofelsund. The Quakes found the equalizer in the 49th minute via free kick taken by Cristian Espinosa before the Utah side added 2 more goals later in the second half. The Earthquakes now return to San Jose to face Monterey Bay FC in the 3rd round of the 2023 US Open Cup on Tuesday, April 25th in Seaside, California.
That is it for today's Sports Roundup. I'm Carlos Reyes. Thank you for watching.
Thanks, Carlos. And that's all we have got for you tonight. We would like you to join us again on California Today every weekday at 8:30 p.m. Make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage. You can find it at ntd.com/California-today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with the friends and family. Send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, california.today@ntd.com. I'm David Zhang. Have a wonderful evening.